Good morning, everyone from Kathmandu. It's good morning here, and good afternoon in other wherever. Finally, a long wait is over. We are now at the opening ceremony of APrIGF 2021 to be held in hybrid Kathmandu mode. I would like to welcome all the participants of this edition of APrIGF. We were supposed to host APrIGF 2020 in Kathmandu, but forced to go virtual due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This year also, uncertainties were looming around. With the inputs from all the MSC members and well-wishers, we are here at the inaugural session of APrIGF 2021. Internet Governance Institute is the lead host of the 12th edition of APrIGF, where Nepal Internet Foundation, Internet Exchange Nepal, and Internet Society Nepal are the hosts of this event. The host steering committee, represented by all the host organizations, collectively contributed on materializing this event. United Nations Internet Governance Forum and Nepal Telecommunication Authority have extended their support to host this edition of APrIGF.
Recording in progress.
Similarly, ICANN, APNIC, and Internet Society have continuous support to APrIGF and for this edition as well. Nepal Telecom, WorldLink Communications, Subisu CableNet, Vianet Communications, F1 Soft International, Thakral One, Digital Network Solutions, Khalti, Lenden Seva, BizBazaar.com are sponsor for the local event. WorldLink and Vianet additionally contributed on connectivity part of this event, and Lajgar.com has arranged a cultural show at last minute preparation. As MSG, during last MSC discussion, we had a suggestion to have very brief cultural show. So we have arranged this for this opening ceremony of APrIGF 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to start the proceeding of the inaugural session. I would like to request Mr. Manohar Kumar Bhattarai, the founding chair of Internet Governance Institute, the lead host of the APrIGF 2021, to chair this inaugural session. I'd like to call him on the dais. Similarly, Dr. Vaikuntha Arayal, the Secretary of the Ministry of Communication and Information Technology, is with us. Thanking him, I would like to call him as the chief guest of this APrIGF 2021 in hybrid model, hybrid Kathmandu. Thank you, Chief of the Guest, Secretary of the Ministry of Communication. Now, I would like to request all the guests to sit at wherever they are, and all the participants who are virtually connected with this APrIGF 2021 in hybrid Kathmandu model. As I said, we'll have a very brief cultural show. Now, I would like to call upon, before cultural show, I would like to request my technical team to start this event with our national anthem. And I will request all the participant and audience here to honor these proceedings. I would like to request to play national anthem of Nepal. Thank you very much. Thank you all. This event is possible because of our supporting organizations and international supporting organizations and sponsors and all of the volunteers. Our national partners of this event are CAN Federation. CAN Federation is umbrella organization of ICT industry in Nepal. Similarly, we have NPNOC, we have ISP Association of Nepal, we have Forum for Digital Equality, we have Freedom Forum, we have Center for Cyber Security Research and Innovation and NPCERT, and we have WebTech Nepal as well as local supporter. Similarly, we have international partners at this event. As international partners, we have CCAOI India, Asia Pacific School on Internet Governance, APrIGF ICANN, Digital Empowerment Foundation India. We have Lawn Asia from Sri Lanka. We have Internet Society Pakistan Islamabad chapter, India Kolkata chapter, and India Delhi chapter as international partners. Because of all the support from international partners, this program is possible. Actually, we spent around 3 years since we took over the responsibility of hosting local aid in Nepal, in Kathmandu. Now, I would like to call Master Dristina for her brief performance, and I would like to request our technical team to play music of the song Sirema Sirbandi, a Nepali folk song, very popular Nepali folk song, and Master Dristina had already participated on Nepal IGF as well, and she is performing, and this performance will be around 3 minutes only. Thank you. Dristina, please come at the floor.
Let's start digital, entertaining the nation.
Thank you, Dristina. It was indeed a very good performance in very short preparation. Now, I'd like to call Master Ahana for a very soulful song by monk Anichweng Dolma, Jai Hoss.
Bro Mangalahos Chita Sadaivari Kumalahos Chita Sadaivari Kumalahos Jarus ya garmi hos Pani paros ya Adit saros Jarus ya garmi hos Pani paros ya Adit saros Nubela pani kabada Amrita bani bersana hos Jaya hos Indro Manggala hos Jaya hos Indro Manggala hos Cita sadaivari Kumalahos Cita sadaivari Kumalahos Sukhaku icha yestos Jati kasaima dukhanahos Sukhaku icha yestos Jati kasaima dukhanahos Imbro sukhama Nabilabai Mero mukhapani ujalahos Jayahos Imbro Mangalahos Jayahos Imbro Mangalahos Cita sadaivari Kumalahos Cita sadaivari Kumalahos Cita sadaivari Kumalahos. Thank you.
Thank you, Ahana. It was indeed a good performance. Now, I'd like to call Ms. Lisa Srestha and Ritu Darsana Dhari for welcome dance. It is a very, Nepal is very rich in diversity from culture, language, geographical, ethnic, and we are playing, they are performing Amok Siddhyare Tara song, and this is based on Jap Tal. Jap is one of rhythm in our local music. So I would like to request them to perform, and I would like request to technical team to play the song, please.
So
Thank you, Lija and Ritu. It was indeed a very good performance, and arranging Lazga.com for this. I'd like to thank on behalf of entire team, local host team, and the MSc secretariat as well. Now, with this welcome dance, I would like to request our chief guest, Dr. Vaikuntha Arayal, to inaugurate this APrIGF 2021 Hybrid Kathmandu, officially lighting a lamp of peace. And I would like to request all our chair and our team to support him during this inaugural part. Thank you, Chief Guest. Thank you, Vikram. Now, I would like to request for very brief opening remarks from our panelists, guests of this opening ceremony. I would like to call Rajneesh Singh, the MSc chair of APrIGF and the Vice President of International Society Asia Pacific, who is very instrumental on guiding this APrIGF Hybrid Kathmandu. Rajneesh, for your remarks.
Thank you, Baburam. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Indeed, this is one of those regions, in fact, the only region in the world where we have early morning, middle of the day and night all at the same time. So wherever you may be joining us for this today, thank you for joining us. Thank you to our host team for putting together at very short notice a cultural performance. Initially, this wasn't planned, so there were a few hiccups, as you could figure out with the audio stream and all that, but I hope you still were able to enjoy a bit of culture from Nepal as well. It's unfortunate due to the pandemic that we have yet again this year had to do a virtual event, although we've moved on from last year where we had a fully virtual event. So this is a bit of a hybrid. As you can see, we have some physical interaction in Nepal, and we also have a couple of remote hubs in the region. So I know we're running a bit late, so I won't take too long. So just very quickly, this year's event's theme is towards an inclusive, sustainable, and trusted internet. And the theme in itself, I think, will tell you what the focus of the event is. So there's three thematic areas based on that: inclusion, sustainability, and trust. For those who've been to APrIGFs in the past, you would have realized that it's a bit of a change as we now have these three high-level thematic areas. And this has really been done to better reflect the community needs, as well be a bit more reflective of issues and topics across this very diverse region that we have. You know, I guess you can also guess that some of the sessions will be pandemic related. I think the whole region and the world for that matter is still living through this pandemic. There's still a lot of challenges ahead. So quite a few of those sessions that we will have through the course of this week will touch on the pandemic, but as well, there are a bunch of other sessions as well, which you may find of interest. You know, one thing that we realized from last year when we did the virtual event, although we lose some of the nice bits that are present in the physical meeting, you know, the one-on-one interaction, the social networking, and so on, there are, however, of course, some advantages of having a virtual or a hybrid format, as in this case, as in this year. I like to call it, you know, what I call the tyranny of time, distance, and visas. Because as we all know, if you travel frequently, it's painful, it's expensive. Visas are sometimes highly problematic, particularly in some countries. And at least in this hybrid format where there's a virtual component, I think it just allows that greater inclusion in terms of people who can participate, who might not normally have been able to. So at the end of the event, of course, we'll have the numbers come in and we'll know how well we did in terms of the virtual participation. But looking at the registrations, I think it's looking very promising. You know, we keep saying that this is a very diverse region, and I think I, for one, am very privileged to be a part of this region. We have the most developed economies in this region, and we have the least developed. We have the most technologically advanced economies, and at the same time, we have small island states and landlocked countries, of which, of course, Nepal is one, which have their own unique challenges. Yet, I think there is this thing where we can benefit from the common opportunities and sharing of knowledge that happens at these sort of events. The APrIGF itself over the years has grown, and I think there's more potential for it to be more reflective of what the community wants and what the community needs, and I look forward to seeing that progress through the years. I also invite newcomers to join in to the APrIGF, not just to join a session, but indeed be a part of the APrIGF community. And there's many ways you can do that, including joining our working groups and committees and so on. Please visit our website for more information on that. I do hope that you will find this year's APrIGF a forum for insightful discussions. Fundamentally, it's about sharing knowledge, right? But you need to be a part of the conversation. It's not just listening to others. We welcome your input, we welcome your contributions. We also have this thing we call the synthesis document, which tries to capture the views and opinions on internet-related issues from around the region. Please consider providing your contributions into that. Details are on the APrIGF website. And remember, this is your regional IGF, so please do engage, please do contribute. I would also like to thank all my colleagues and peers who have been involved in putting this event together. In some ways, I think a physical event is so much easier to do because, there are less moving parts. With virtual events, I think we have a few more moving parts, particularly when it's one of this nature, where it's regional or international in flavor. I do hope you enjoy what we have ahead for you over the next few days. And we look forward to seeing you online and you being a part of the APrIGF community. Thank you. Back to you, Babu. Babu Ram, are you there?
Just taking the note, I guess, Babu, the hub in Nepal seems to be muted.
Now it's okay?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Now I would like to call YIAGF Youth Intergovernance Forum Asia Pacific representative, Ms. B. Soriano Govera, for her opening remarks. As YIGF is one of very significant part of Asia Pacific regional IGF, I would like to call her for her opening remarks.
Hello, everyone. Again, like what Raj mentioned, wherever you are, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and namaste to our friends in Kathmandu. And shout out to our sign language interpreters. Thanks so much for doing what you do. And thank you very much, everyone, for being here today. My name is Bea. I'm from the Philippines. I'm one of the organizers for this year's YIGF, or Youth Internet Governance Forum, which I have been attending since it was hosted in Bangkok, Thailand in 2017, joined virtually for Vanuatu 2018, and my last trip before the pandemic, I was able to fly to Vladivostok, Russia, and now I'm here on the big virtual stage to kick off the event and give you an insight of what YIGF is all about. Well, to start it off, YIGF is a forum that raises awareness and builds the capacity for the youth to join the internet governance discussion. It's a program that brings people together from various stakeholder groups as equals. And not to mention, the youth is the biggest stakeholder group to be using the internet. It is also an open platform for the young generation to express and interchange their ideas and own thoughts on internet governance freely. It really empowers the voices of the youth since there aren't many forums that involve them or involve us. Luckily, YIGF is one of those events that helps the youth be prepared and involved in policymaking agendas. It's a safe and open space for great discussion. As always, Youth IGF occurs in conjunction with APrIGF annually. Last week, we dealt with two discussion topics: ramification of internet hardware on the environment and the geopolitics, and is cryptocurrency harming our planet? We also had a meetup with industry experts on the topic of consumers' reliance on internet and technology, living the new normal, as well as a dialogue with APAC youth leaders, inspiring the youth to make a change by starting their own initiatives. And the fun does not stop there. We will actually be having our virtual social meetup later today, which you all are invited to. And all of this with this year's theme of envisioning a sustainable internet for today and tomorrow. During our 4 days together, we had a great time and learned a lot from one another. And though I am fairly new here, I hope to engage myself and involve myself more into this internet governance world. And hopefully any youth in this call today is feeling inspired and feels encouraged to join this environment. I hope our fellows and those who have been in this industry for quite some time, let's call them our veterans, and continue to encourage and help raise the voice of the youth. And to end this off, I say this all the time, but educating ourselves and educating others is truly the best investment we can make for the future, our future. Thank you, guys, and see you within the week. Thank you, everyone. I hope you all are doing well. Thank you.
Participation is must, and it's very important part of Asia Pacific APrIGF. Now, I would like to call Mr. Edmund Chong, CEO of Dot Asia. Dot Asia is very instrumental on hosting as host secretariat of APrIGF Virtual 2020, and Dot Asia is the secretariat of MSG, Multi-Stakeholder Steering Committee of APrIGF. And the entire virtual part of this APrIGF hybrid Kathmandu mode is handled by Dot Asia. And I would like to ask Edmund to share his thoughts. Edmund.
Thank you, Babu, and thank you for having me. Thank you very much for the local host from Nepal, Internet Governance Institute of Nepal, Internet Society Nepal, the Nepal Internet Foundation, and NPIX, the Nepal Internet Exchange, especially this year and actually last year as well, for their continued commitment from the delays, the uncertainties through the last 2 years, really, and also pulling together and hosting the physical hub now in Kathmandu to make this hybrid meeting possible. So particular thanks to them and also to our sponsors, including the local sponsors there in Nepal, and also our regional and friends from APNIC, from ICANN APAC Hub, Internet Society Foundation, and the IGF Secretariat. We at Dot Asia continue to be very honored to serve as the secretariat for the APrIGF and to witness this, this history that is being written about our shared internet, and which your participation really makes possible. Innovation has always been a feature of APrIGF, and the Secretariat, we are quite excited to support the continued development of the IGF movement here in Asia Pacific. We started the Youth IGF in 2010, the synthesis document in 2015, and this year we have we're seeing 2 additional work that is being done. One as innovation from the pandemic to bring you actually showcase sessions throughout this week. You can check it out as you have your lunch or your snack. And this year, there will be a new kind of session that will run at APrIGF. This year has been also a very difficult year for the internet governance community here in Asia Pacific region. Daunting challenges earlier in the year in Myanmar, and later also in Afghanistan, and the uncertainties remain. Even here in Hong Kong, where we are faced with unprecedented challenges. And I think those of us who are fortunate enough to realize how important the internet was and is during this pandemic, and amidst the lockdowns that we're experiencing, when our physical mobility is really curtailed, digital mobility becomes the only mobility we have. And as such, it is pretty clear that internet connectivity is a fundamental aspect of human rights. And with that, on September 13th, just 2 weeks ago, we were able to publish out a statement of solidarity with the internet governance community in Afghanistan and Myanmar. And I'm quite excited to note that some fellows and youth IGF participants are actually coming from those countries and regions. Another thing that we are bringing back this year as a hybrid meeting is the town hall sessions, which feeds into our annual synthesis document. All of these features, we're from .Asia, really excited to support as part of an enriched experience for the IGF movement. So with that, thank you once again for the local host to make this hybrid meeting happen. And I look very much forward to wishing you a fruitful meeting at the APrIGF 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Edmund. We have Mr. Chengetai Masango from United Nations Internet Governance Forum Program and Technology Manager at this APrIGF 2021 Hybrid Kathmandu mode. I'd like to call him for his opening remarks. Mr. Chengetai is very instrumental on contributing national and regional IGFs, and he has lots of experience interacting with national and regional IGFs. So I'd like to call him to share his experience and thoughts. Mr. Chengetai, please.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting me and the IGF Secretariat to the 2021 APrIGF. As always, I'm honored to be able to join you. My congratulations go to the organizing committee, the government of Nepal, and the sponsors for making this meeting possible. I have had the pleasure to attend several APrIGF meetings in person. From experience, I know that they are always very innovative, have rich discussions, and also have very good social events. Unfortunately, this year again, we are meeting virtually. But as I am always underlining, we are so fortunate to be able to run our important mission of making the internet a better place for all, despite challenges the COVID-19 pandemic imposes on all of us. Physical distancing, remote work, e-education, health-related information, digital COVID certificates, COVID apps, that is pretty much what has been dominating our lives since the early beginnings of last year. And if we look carefully, all these concepts are directly related to the internet in some fashion. The internet provides its purpose once again. If self-awareness was not with all of us, that much of our lives actively depends on the internet, now I assume it is. We have been living through that dependency. More than ever, those lives in an offline world must be on our minds. Unlike ever before, for those people, not having access to the internet translates to job losses. It translates to an inability to attend school. It means not being able to communicate with loved ones. In short, it means not being able to continue surviving through times when our health is in danger. The digital divides are with us. You can find them everywhere, in rural and remote areas, in cities, amongst displaced people, indigenous peoples, amongst women and girls, among youth, but also the elderly population. It requires a strong multi-stakeholder strategic response through local, regional, and global cooperation mechanisms. The APrIGF discussions, nested under its main theme, towards an inclusive, sustainable, and trusted internet, will certainly be extremely valuable input for the region, but also global community, to learn what we need to aim at to ensure the internet becomes a beneficial place for all. Like with APrIGF, for the global IGF community, the issue of access to a safe, secure, accessible, and affordable internet has been at the center of its discussions since the IGF's beginnings. This year, we are even more dedicated to tackling it through our 2021 annual processes, including the 16th annual IGF, which will be hosted by the government of Poland in Katowice from 6 to 10 December. We expect over 1,000 participants from all disciplines and regions who join us at the 16th IGF, with over 200 sessions focused on the forum's 6 main issue areas related to concepts of access, human rights, economy, cooperation, environment, and trust. In addition, the Katowice IGF will welcome leaders from different regions and organizations within its high-level track. Also, members of parliaments will join us to exchange views on legislative approaches for a user-centric internet. The hybrid format of IGF 2021 aims to accommodate online participation in a meaningful way than the on-site one. And I cordially invite all of the stakeholders across your beautiful region to join us and ensure the voices of communities from there are elevated to the global level. And while preparing for the IGF in Poland, we are intensively engaged in discussions on cybersecurity, gender and digital rights, environment, and meaningful access through the work of our best practice forums and policy networks. These work streams are open to all of you to join at any point in time. As I said at the beginning, I honestly hope that next year we will be speaking about this in person at the APrIGF 2022. In 2023, we are most definitely coming to you, with the government of Japan having committed to host the 18th IGF. We are already working on ways of best engagement with the region. Thank you, and I wish you a successful APrIGF 2021. Thank you.
A meeting with you in Bangkok that encouraged us to organize this APrIGF in Nepal. Thank you, Chengitai. Now, I would like to move to another part. We have Dr. Vaikuntha Aryal as a chief guest, who is Secretary of Ministry of Communication and Information Technology. Just before calling him at the dais, I would like to introduce my steering committee colleagues who significantly contributed organizing this event, making this possible. I'd like to request to Vikram Shrestha to stand and please focus to him. Vikram is the president of Nepal Internet Foundation and one of member of steering committee of local host. Rupesh Shrestha, CEO of NPIX, and Mr. Romkant Pandey, acting chair of Nepal Internet Society, Nepal. And I would like to stand Anand Gautam, who is the secretariat of local host, who is significantly engaged with communication with various stakeholders. And I'd like thanking all of them. I would like to request our chief guest for his inaugural remarks.
Thank you, Baburamji. Chair of this session, distinguished participants in Kathmandu and different countries in Asia Pacific region. Very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all wherever you are. It is my pleasure and privilege to be part of this very important program organized here in Kathmandu in hybrid mode. At the outset, I would like to thank and congratulate the organizers for organizing this program in hybrid mode despite ongoing pandemic. This program would, I believe, help and support the initiatives in internet governance in the region. Needless to say, the importance of information technology is increasing every day. Actually, every minute. Every time, every minute, there is revolutionary changes in the internet governance, and people are using it for different purposes. Earlier, when I was young, actually, when I was entering into the middle age myself, the mobile technology was a kind of luxury. But now it is the essential and most essential part of the life. When you leave the home for the office, for the work, or for everywhere, and if you just feel that, okay, you have own two different socks. In one leg, one colored, and in one leg, another color, you might not dare to go back again and to change the sock. But if you forget your mobile at home, then wherever you are, you tend to return to home and then again bring it, because this has become the life. And this mobile, not only for the communication, not only to talk to your people, not only to talk to your beloved, but to work with this device and everything. So the revolutionary changes in the information technology has further been improved. The importance has further been observed during the pandemic when everyone was locked inside their houses. Actually, it has become our part of life, and we can easily foresee that it will be most important and most essential part of our lives in the days to come. As previous speakers also mentioned, the countries are diverse in terms of technological development. The access to ICT and access to internet facilities is also at different level among the countries. Further, the diversity remains within a country itself. Nepal particularly is yet to make internet accessible to all population. The government of Nepal is implementing different programs to build the infrastructure and increase the affordable access to internet throughout the country. Further, the government is implementing the digital literacy program to increase the level of understanding about internet, the use, the benefits, and the different aspects of this facility. We have developed Digital Nepal framework with 8 different thematic areas and 80 different actions related to making Nepal a part of digital world. And our chair of this session, Dr. Manohar Bhattarai, was part of, and actually the instrumental person to help us to frame this framework. And I personally, and from my ministries on behalf, I would like to thank him for that initiative too. Through this framework, we aim to provide public and private services through internet. Not only that, this initiative helps to promote government to government, government to business, government to citizen, business to government, and business to citizen services, business to service, citizen interactions, and many other more. Further, it helps the citizens to interact among themselves. Mr. Chair, today's program helps to increase the understanding and sensitizing the importance of internet governance among the youths, because they are the most important player of the innovation and most important player of the information technology. They are the one who can drive the whole country. They can drive the whole development of the country through this initiative. So I would like to congratulate and thank the organizers for joining and for making this program possible by joining the different eminent personalities around the countries of the region, so that we can learn cross-country experiences and then again share the knowledges and exchange the ideas about the internet governance with their initiatives and how it has been helping in their country and how can we replicate those things in different parts of the world. So thank you very much for this opportunity to come to here and speak a few words before you, in front of you. Actually, I'm very, my understanding is in very germinating phase about the internet governance and all these things, because I'm only the user, I'm only the learner. So in the technological side, definitely I don't have that much knowledge, but as a user, definitely I am the heavy user of these facilities and all these things. Lastly, I wish for the successful completion of this program. And I truly believe that this program would help everyone participating to broaden their ideas, widen their knowledge, and provide their expertise and ideas to all others. I finally would like to thank the participants to actively participate rather than just a silent listener, and so that you can gain more and other will also gain more from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Now I'd like to call the chair of this inaugural session and the president of Internet Governance Institute, one of the host team of this APrIGF hybrid Kathmandu model, to conclude, to thank various stakeholders of this event and his own concluding remarks. Mr. Manohar Bhattarai, please.
Thank you, Baburamji. Good morning, good afternoon, as the case may be, and namaste from Kathmandu, Nepal. First off, please allow me to extend a very warm welcome to all the participants of this 12th Asia Pacific Internet Governance Forum on behalf of Internet Government Institute Nepal, Nepal Internet Foundation, NPIX, and Internet Society of Nepal, among many other partners. We're indeed proud to be the local host of this event, along with other partner organizations, both national and international. As many of you are aware, we are all eagerly looking forward to welcoming you to the welcoming the national and international participant physically here in Nepal for this event. But the ongoing pandemic upended our plans for having face-to-face interactions. And as such, we had to resort, unfortunately, to this hybrid model for this event. Coming to think of it, I guess in some ways, COVID exigencies do provide a fitting backdrop for the broad themes of this APrIGF, in that importance of an inclusive, trusted, and sustainable internet has taken a renewed urgency and relevance in the face of the pandemic. And that's there for all us to see. I think the level of reliance that we have on internet these days is growing by the day as I speak. So I think this provides a fitting backdrop to talk about some of the issues, especially talk about the themes of this event in that light. For example, we have seen perhaps more than ever before, digital divides and exclusion become more apparent in the face of pandemic-induced digital reliance, especially in the area of access to online education, health, and financial services. This I can tell also from my vantage point, whereby I've taken some renewed interest in online education and digital health and initiatives like that. And there, I think it's all too visible, the impact that the persistent digital divide has on the overall impact on learning of the students and all that. So divide, I think it also runs along socioeconomic fault lines in terms of access to internet, in terms of access to devices and all that. So I think that is kind of elephant in the room that we need to be talking about. And this, of course, needs addressing going forward. Similarly, trust and security on the internet and the issues surrounding cyber resilience is another area that has taken on renewed urgency. There is no doubt about that. In recent times, as internet more and more assumes the roles of critical lifeline infrastructure. This also we have witnessed big time as to what extent internet is being entrenched in our everyday life and what extent it's been converted to lifeline infrastructure. So I think the issues around trust and security need also addressing big time going forward. And complex issues of growing offline impacts of online behaviors also clamor for policy attention going forward. I think this is also the real issue that needs tackling going forward. It's not, of course, it's a tricky territory. It's not easy, but then again, this is something that we should be talking about going forward when we talk about internet governance and all the related issues. Coming to the structure of the event, I was going through the structure of the event. I can see that there's an interesting and very impressive lineup of speakers. There's no doubt about that. And speakers and presentation in this 12th edition of APrIGF along the thematic line selected and representing, of course, a diverse set of stakeholders. So that's also very encouraging, and that goes to show that the event would definitely be fruitful. And I must say, I was going through the program and I saw that the couple of prominent speakers have agreed to participate and share their views. And I must say that we're really honored to have received a message from Mr. Vint Cerf. He's a renowned personality, internet pioneer in this event. And I would like to express our most sincere gratitude to Mr. Cerf for the same, along with other prominent speakers and presenters. And I would also like to thank all the sponsors, supporters, and support staff who contributed towards this event. And the contribution was, of course, significant, as you can see in the cultural show that we just saw, and the other logistic arrangements, especially in a time like this. And I was going through, I was listening to the opening presentation, and I am fully aligned with Rajneesh's assertion that the internet governance as a mission should be broad-based, and especially he was trying to make a point that there has to be significant youth participation in the internet governance issues. So I ask all the organizers, including Internet Governance Institute and all the stakeholders, to make sure that Nepali youth also have a significant say in the issues governing the internet. I'm sure that this event will render valuable contribution towards strengthening the foundation of digital future based on a sustainable and robust internet. But once again, a warm welcome to you all in this very important event, and many thanks indeed for all the organizers and sponsors for providing us with the opportunity to this event. And one thing I must not be forgetting is the little cultural show that we have had. Lastly, I will please allow me to take this opportunity to thank the performers of this cultural event. And this is a bit of a surprise, but it was a pleasant surprise, and no doubt, for the excellent cultural shows and performance. And thanks you, especially Ahana, for your soulful rendition of Ani's song. That was something. Yeah, that was something. Thank you, Ahana, for that. Again, thank you. Thank you all for being here this afternoon, this morning, and I wish a very productive event as always. And we on the Nepal side are hopeful that the insight that the event is ultimately able to generate would feed into the aspirations we have in terms of digital journey. And our chief guest, thank you him very much for being present here. He also mentioned about this Digital Nepal initiative. This is an ambitious initiative, no doubt, but then again, I think there are a couple of fundamentals that are in place. So I think we are in a right journey. So with the help of all the stakeholders, with the help of events like this, we will get some policy feedback that would feed into this Digital Nepal strategy. Once again, thank you very much for being here. And thank you all our international participants for being here. even virtually. Thank you all.
Thank you, Manohar sir. It was indeed a very significant moment for us with this opening remarks of our guests. We have plenty of very senior policymakers and business players, and we have very significant presence of stakeholders. I can see Mr. Birendra Mishra, who is the chair of Nepal IGF. I can see Joint Secretary Ramesh Sharma of Nepal government. I can see Mr. Anand Raj Khanal, who is the MAG member, UN MAG member. I can see past presidents of CAN Federation, Biplab Man Singh, Suresh Karna, Vinod Dakal, past General Secretary, Mr. Bimdos Shrestha, including all of you. It was indeed our pleasure to host this opening session of this APrIGF hybrid Kathmandu mode. I would like to recall our sponsors, especially our sponsors are United Nations Internet Governance Forum and Nepal Telecommunication Authority. They have significant support to us, and ICANN, APNIC, Internet Society Foundation for this support, and also from local significant contributor of stakeholder of internet governance, Nepal Telecom, WorldLink Communications, Subisu CableNet, Vianet Communications, F1Soft International, Thakral One, Digital Network Solutions, Khalti, Lenden, BizBazaar.com, Lozgar.com. And I would like to thank all the stakeholders, national partners, CAN Federation, ISP Association of Nepal ISPAN, NPNOG, Forum for Digital Equality, Freedom Forum, WebTech Nepal, CSRI, NPCERT, similarly international, our partners, CCAOI Delhi, Digital Empowerment Foundation Delhi, Asia Pacific School on Internet Governance, ICANN Epiralo, ISOC Delhi chapter, ISOC Islamabad chapter, ISOC India Kolkata chapter as well. With this is the end of opening remarks, not the whole event. This is the beginning of our event. We have next COVID-19 Internet as a Lifeline panel discussion. From Nepal, we have Mr. Binay Bohra representing in this panel. And I would like to request Mr. Rajneesh Singh, the chair of MSG of APrIGF, who is also the vice president of Internet Society Asia Pacific Bureau, to take over from this to the his panel discussion. I would like to thank our interpreters, sign language interpreters, especially Pooja Regmi and Rama Dakal, who are interpreting sign language, and the team of Anish Subedi and Square Services. And I would like to request entire technical team to contribute, and I'd like to request all the participants to join a very significant this COVID-19 Internet as a Lifeline. And Rajneesh, floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Babu Ram, and thank you to all who've helped put this event together, our sponsors, obviously, but as well as the technical teams involved, and as well all the members of the APrIGF community and the MSG who have played their part in making this happen. I know we are running quite late, so I apologize for the delay, but we'll get straight into the panel discussion now. And in the interest of time, I will not be reading out long bios and such, and we will get straight into it. So as Babu Ram mentioned, the theme of the roundtable is COVID-19, the Internet as a Lifeline. Now, I think for the last year and a bit, just about every event's been talking about COVID-19 and how it's impacted things and how the Internet has played a role. Obviously, if the Internet had not been around in the way it is, I think we would have all been in a bit of strife in terms of how we would go on with some semblance of normal life. Now, what we decided to do with this session was, instead of repeating what you might have already heard before in other various events and sessions, we thought we'd take a slightly different tack. And what we have is a great lineup of speakers from around the region, from very different backgrounds. And to each of them, I have sent in advance a question that I was going to ask them, and I would have asked them to respond to that. After that, we'll get into a short panel discussion. Unfortunately, we will not be able to go for the full hour as we originally intended. So we'll try and finish it a little bit before time, because at the top of the hour, we have another session starting up, and we need to ensure that our technical team is able to bring that session online rapidly. Now, for our speakers, I have Mr. Mohammad Shabir Awand, who is the founding president of the Internet Society's Accessibility Special Interest Group. He's from Pakistan. Mr. Binay Bora, who's managing director of Vianet Communications from Nepal. Ms. Nuria Kutneva, founder and head of the Digital Technologies Foundation from the Kyrgyz Republic. Mr. Enrique Tayag, director at the Department of Health, Knowledge Management and Information Technology Services from the Philippines. And Ms. Sarai Tevita, ICT director at the University of Samoa, from Samoa. As you can see, we are basically from all corners. Our speakers are from all corners of the region, and I'm hoping that we will have some great perspectives. And that was the whole idea behind this. We all know how the internet has played a role, but what we really wanted to hear was, how it has helped us from these specific backgrounds that our speakers are from. Now, before I go to our speakers, we have a message from Vint Cerf, Chief Internet Evangelist at Google, but of course more widely known as the co-founder of the Internet. Unfortunately, due to the time zone, Vint couldn't join us live for this session, but he very kindly has sent us a video, which is just a couple of minutes long. So I'll ask the secretary to play the video now, because that will perhaps set the stage for some of the discussions that will ensue later on. Christine and team, are we able to play the video from Vint? And I should add, Vint, of course, has been a long-time supporter of the regional IGF. He's been here in person a number of times, and he's always very interested in what we're doing in the region. So I see his video is teed up, so please go ahead.
Hello, my name is Vint Cerf. I'm Google's Chief Internet Evangelist. I want to thank Rajneesh Singh, my good friend, for inviting me to speak briefly at the Asia-Pac Regional Internet Governance Forum. As always, I wish I could be there with you in person. I've been here in my basement office now for about 18 months, and I do look forward to a return to visit once the pandemic has subsided. I'm sure many of you are equally disturbed by the rapid progress of the most recent variant Delta and the lack of progress of getting people vaccinated. It's a huge challenge, and one which I hope we will finally get past by sometime next year. Meanwhile, it's important for you to convene and to discuss internet matters, especially policy choices that are of great importance, and among which I would include connectivity. I must say I've been very impressed by the amount of undersea cable investment that's been going on. Islands are being connected that I did not anticipate would do so by way of cable. Vanuatu, thanks in part to a World Bank underwriting of cost. So I think the rest of the region might look to increased amounts of undersea cable. In the meantime, however, we've seen rapid development on low Earth orbiting satellites, most notably Starlink, but there are others that are planned as well. At some point, should these turn out to be successful, it may be impossible to avoid access to the internet, no matter where you are on the planet. In the meantime, there are other possibly as important, if not more important, aspects of connectivity that I'd like to address. Just getting people online in an affordable and sustainable way, of course, is a very important objective, but it's important that that connectivity be useful. And at the Marconi Society, we have been studying for the course of this year a kind of decadal evaluation of digital inclusion. What does it mean to be included in the digital sense, and what metrics might we use to figure out how included you are? And we've reached, at least tentatively, the thought that it's not just a question of physical connectivity, physical access and equipment that you need, laptops, tablets, and mobiles, but what services are actually available? What applications are supportable? Is it a sustainable operation? Can you make use of this in order to conduct business? Is safety and security and privacy adequately cared for? And in fact, there are quite a few metrics of access to internet that we might want to use to figure out how well connected are we, how usefully connected are we. And so I would urge you to begin thinking in those very broad terms. Is our local languages supported properly? What about people who need accommodation for disability? Is that accommodated? And I'm sure you can make up a number of other metrics that are equally important. So the bottom line, I think, for the Internet Governance Forum meetings in the Asia-Pac region is to assure that not only is the physical connectivity dealt with and plans put forth to increase the rate of penetration, but also to consider all of these other broad metrics that make the access to the internet useful. I look forward to hearing the results of the conference. I hope that someone will take good notes and share them with the rest of us. And of course, as 2022 unfolds, I really look forward to the possibility of a return to visit in the Asia-Pac region.
So again, we thank Vint for recording that message for us. And obviously he has mentioned a range of things there. And in fact, from what he said, I think we could do a session on its own just to unpack some of the things he spoke about, particularly with the metrics on how we actually measure usability and what the internet means for us. So maybe we'll come back to a couple of those points a bit later on. But first, let me get the different perspectives we have from our esteemed speakers today. So I'll start off with Enrique. Enrique, as COVID-19 spread across the world, the health and medical systems had a lot to deal with. And from what I've heard from friends and colleagues that who in the medical profession, that it was a lifeline for them to be able to do what they do, from tracking and tracing to patient management and so on. The other part, of course, was to be able to report on the data and infection and get advice to the public in good time and get accurate information to the public. So from your perspective, sitting at the Department of Health in the Philippines, and all you had to do, and of course still have had to do it, it's still a challenge in many respects. What role did you see the internet playing in all these, and how did it help?
Thank you, Raj. And before anything else, I'd like to congratulate the organizers of this forum, especially to Nepal for giving us a glimpse of your culture. It was wonderful. Raj, going back to your question, the services have been disrupted, perhaps not only in the Philippines, but others as well. A silver lining to this pandemic is our telemedicine. It started last year as a COVID-19 hotline 1555, and this is to allay fears of the public, and they will have access to the critical and vital information on COVID-19. And as we progress, we had to initiate telemedicine because there was a growing demand. And so we had practically every model platforms for telemedicine. And right now, because of the lockdowns or community quarantines that have been imposed that restricted mobility, it continues to provide solace to the public so that they can actually have these consultations at the comfort of their homes. It has its limitations though. We cannot do emergency consultations, we cannot do perfect physical examinations, but it does connect the public, the patients, individuals who fear going to the hospitals to have their teleconsultations. Besides that, when we count cases and deaths, we rely more on a secure internet so that personal information is not actually breached. And we are very particular about this, especially that confirmed cases are reported every day, especially their health status during the COVID-19 pandemic. And besides that, because we are ramping up with our COVID vaccination, we want to make sure that every Filipino will have their vaccine certificate so that when these are needed, they can actually use this so that we can improve mobility. Thank you, Raj.
Thank you, Enrique. And then I hope to come back to a few things that you mentioned a bit later on. Next, I'd like to move to another part of our vast region, Nuria. Each government has had a set of challenges to deal with due to the pandemic. Apart from the health and medical systems, which of course Enrique just alluded to, things like online education, work from home, and ensuring that the economy also kept functioning was key. How did the Kyrgyz government approach this? And what role do you think technology and the internet had to play in that?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Raj, for inviting me and for giving me the floor. The pandemic has been a huge challenge to all governments and people in the world, but surprisingly, it brought also many useful things. And first of all, it accelerated promotion of digital transformation of business and governments. I would like to point out several trends that we are witnessing at the moment. Firstly, the pandemic made all states promote digital transformation virtually ASAP as soon as possible. In the last several years, many countries introduced on the governmental level many good initiatives. And of course, Kyrgyzstan was also one of them, like digital, mobile, and face IDs, e-government portals, digital interagency platform. Right before the pandemic in 2019, Kyrgyzstan received the award from one of the most advanced in the digital sphere, Estonia, for being the most effective implementer of the interoperability or interagency solution. All these initiatives helped to overcome turbulent months of the pandemic. Secondly, online becomes more common than offline. It relates not only to conferences, trainings, classes, but also for works meetings and even for governmental and interagency sessions, making them efficient and not time-consuming. Previously, this was unthinkable to imagine that the governmental sessions will be held online. Thirdly, traditional businesses are falling behind. In the last several years, we are witnessing many initiatives from the commercial side, from the business side, with introducing payment with mobile phones for everything. Slow, bureaucratic, monumental banks are left behind, and simultaneously mobile phone companies and small startups are introducing very innovative things and giving citizens innovative, interesting platforms. In fact, in Kyrgyzstan, mobile internet is used much more than optic fiber. 99% of population is covered by a mobile cellular network. Kyrgyzstan, with a population of about 6.6 million people, there are about more than 9 million mobile phones. Kyrgyzstan ranks the second in the world in terms of mobile internet accessibility, with 15 cents per 1 gigabyte. Fourthly, we are witnessing fast promotion of digital skills by all layers of a population. We quickly got used to small kids knowing technologies better than elderly people. However, the last tendencies that our grandparents are not only using messengers like WhatsApp or Telegram, calling their children who are working abroad, but think how many doctors and teachers are forced to learn ASAP computers so that they can work. And last but not least, thanks to the pandemic, we saw a very high level of civic engagement implemented thanks to the internet and messengers. For example, in Kyrgyzstan, volunteers through different messengers collected and brought humanitarian aid and medicines to sick people. IT companies made different applications free of charge just to help people. However, at the same time, and today it was many times repeated, the digital divide didn't disappear. Also in Kyrgyzstan, not 100% are covered with optic fiber internet. Besides, only 30% of households are having computers at home. And now we are coming to the question, who is left behind in the pandemic? In terms of geography, those who are living in the suburbs, in the rural areas, remote areas, in terms of social division, impoverished and low educated people, and in terms of gender, of course, females who do not dare to go to universities, not to say about getting education in IT departments. What should we do? Firstly, change the education paradigm. Primarily, content should be changed. And I think it is an issue for many governments, how to organize a knowledge without memorizing the facts, but rather making pupils and students think and analyze. Secondly, governments should pay special attention to the STEM education for girls, introducing IT and technology specialization to the school education. Thirdly, I underline that school children should study offline. However, we should take a closer look at the online learning education, which gives many advantages points, especially for those who cannot otherwise enter expensive courses and universities. Fourthly, governments should pay closer attention to cybersecurity and data protection issues. I think we can talk about this later. Risks in this regard are going hand in hand with advantages of internet. And last but not least, I would like to thank organizers for inviting me to the forum, as I already said. And I would like to stress that we need to work all together to eliminate all forms of digital divide. I also appeal to the board of the forum to have more voices from Central Asia to join the IGF, the Asian and Pacific region. It's important to ensure that the Central Asia is represented in this forum, and we will do our best to ensure more representatives who are working hard in our region to progress ICT and internet governance. We also want the right experts who are doing all the hard work behind the scenes. It's important to invite them to the discussions. I thank personally Anju and Rajneesh and the APrIGF Secretariat for including the voices from Central Asia, and we hope to continue joining the discussions in the nearest future. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Nuria. And from some of what you said, it's probably a good lead-in to bring in Binay into the conversation. So Binay, of course, runs a telecom communications company in Nepal, amongst other things he does. So Binay, do I have you? I can't see you on, are you at one of the local?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, you're here, right, okay. Your audio is a bit low, so you may need to improve the gain on that. So Binay, obviously, I mean, from what we've already had from our previous speakers and from what we know, the internet's played a critical role and continues to do so for the whole economy. But from your perspective, how have ISPs and network operators dealt with the challenges brought on by the pandemic in terms of this greater dependency on the internet? Now, if I think back to when the shutdown started happening in February, March last year, there was this panic setting in from many parts of the world, including governments, saying that the internet would not be able to cope with work from home and all these other things we had to do. So how have you seen it evolve over the last 18 months or so? And what are your thoughts on this?
Thank you very much. Great to be here. There's some resemblance of physical activity finally. It's a hybrid model. So Rajnish, good to see you again. Yeah, and now answering your question from the ISP perspective, what we do is mostly fixed broadband. And this pandemic showed the importance of fixed broadband very prominently. So I think what happened during the pandemic was everybody started panicking because everybody had to stay at home. There was a strict lockdown. Nobody could get out. But then some work had to be done. So the government had to run, there has to be some resemblance of activities, economic activities going on. Everybody home means more usage of internet, more entertainment required to keep them busy away from the pandemic. So it was a very, very challenging time. But what in Nepal particularly, what you have to understand is we were on a very, very high good momentum was there for FTTH installments. Okay, so broadband internet was really picking up. And when it was picking up very strongly, then finally in 2019, this pandemic happened in 2019. So most of the households in the urban centers were ready with very good quality internet through fiber. And that meant their ability to take in content was at the highest. But what we have to understand is, since everybody was now trying to use the network, there was, of course, going to be a choke in the network. There was congestion. And that was a big challenge. Being a landlocked country, it even was more pronounced. So the first challenge was, how do we get more decongest the network better? So that was our first challenge. The second thing we noticed quite quickly was around 1.2 million households or subscribers are online on fiber or similar technology. That means even if you multiply by a large number, around 30 to 33% of the population in Nepal were using high-speed internet. Now, what were they doing? Of course, they were going online. There were Zoom meetings. There were online classes for them. So there is a disadvantage people also on the hilly, because of the difficult terrain in Nepal. We have a very, very challenging area where we can get fiber. And in those areas, of course, we suffered. Mobile internet, which is 4G, is very, very expensive still in Nepal. So it is out of question for poor population to use 4G network, even if the towers are available, even if the network was available. So everybody depended on the fiber to home. So we saw a surge of subscribers trying to come online. There was a big cry for getting fast internet at home, even for underprivileged people who were not using the internet or had no plans to use, were forced to be online by installing this high-speed internet. So ISPs were busy that way. But then came the logistics challenge. There was a supply chain problem. We needed all the CDN servers locally. And then the servers won't come in. Why? Because the flights are not there. The manufacturers are not manufacturing goods in any amount of time that was required then. So all those issues just multiplied the challenges for us. But somehow we survived. And then we thrived. Why? Because we solved all those problems, even if it was expensive to get things done operationally. There was health challenges for our employees to go out on the open and do maintenance work. Landlords were not allowing our employees to get out of the house to work. Why? Because they thought that they'll contract COVID. And all those things were out there. You know, many countries face that, I think. But whatever it was, the challenges were met, and the private sector in Nepal really, really stepped up to provide the internet. I think that is still going, but now we're much better at it.
Thanks, Binay, and you know, and thanks for pointing out, you know, some of the logistical challenges you had, not just from, you know, being able to get supplies because flights were not running. I mean, people sometimes, you know, tend to overlook that. You know, why isn't this a certain thing on the shelves in the store, or why can't I get the latest iPad or whatever it may be? There's been some massive logistical challenges due to that, you know, people being sick and so on. And even from an operator's perspective, like you just said, even setting your staff out to fix something that's broken, that's also challenging. So, you know, it's good to be made aware of the bigger picture in and around this. Now let me hop to the other end of the region and bring in Sarai. Sarai, while much media attention has of course been cast on some of our larger Asia-Pacific neighbors and how they had to deal with the pandemic, and some of them, of course, are still going through major challenges. How do you think it has been for small island states such as the Pacific Islands and in Samoa in particular? I saw on the news, I think was it last weekend, that you had a bit of a vaccination drive in Samoa as well. Over 2 days, there was some sort of lockdown, I think, to do the vaccinations. But you know, apart from that as well, I think I'd like to get some of your views on how the online learning and education perspective comes into play here, you know, seeing that your background from academia. And in particular, you know, we've heard of how it's affected people in some of these larger countries which had major lockdowns. But I think it's also impacted smaller countries which maybe didn't see the large infection rates, but they were still obviously impacted, right?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Raj. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, loud and clear.
Okay, Thank you, Mr. Racha, for putting me into this plenary discussion. And I would like to thank you, the organizing committee, inviting me into this event. To answer your question, yes, it was a great shift. And COVID-19 has made everyone to move on in one platform, which is a digital space. Regarding with the educational, with the NUS, the National University of Samoa, infrastructure pushed to their limits because of this total shift from the being face-to-face onto online. So NUS, before we go to lockdown, before we go with this pandemic, we used a learning management system called Moodle, and I'm sure most of our universities and higher level education, they use that platform. So before we go to lockdown, we, the ICT team and our computing department from Faculty of Science, we had our trainings for our lecturers because it's a total shift and we need to teach our lecturers and how to put courses on Moodle, which is something that is a new way of teaching and delivery. So without the internet evolution here, we can't really continue our education of teaching and the learning of our students. So how we cope with it, it was a process of how we coordinating it, the processes that be involved, what type of people that we need to put in together to work together as a team, and then deliver that in our infrastructure. In doing that, we were considering of our CIA, because the information that we're going to share, the educational materials will be online. Confidentiality, integrity, and availability was those are the factors were considered in times of, because there were a lot of cyber attacks, a lot of cyber events going around at this time, because this is the time of them, this kind of people, intruding our systems, because most of us are online, given that with this pandemic. So for National University of Samoa, working together with our Samoa Information Technologies Association, we call it SITA, they were assisting our secondary schools in providing Moodle. So they went out to some of our high schools and teach the secondary levels in how to use Moodle, both students and staff, so that to continue learning, to continue the education, even though with this pandemic, with the lockdown, at least we have the internet in place, which is our arena now, to carry on with our normal lives. Even if the Ministry of Education, where they focus on the ECE or early childhood education and primary school, the secondary school, and some TVET. So they also provide online education for them. Even here in NUS, not only we have our Moodle as our learning management systems, but we're also looking for blended learning, because we have the TVET, the technical vocational education. And I know this kind of education, they need so much physical and you need face-to-face delivery. So we tried our best to go both the blended and online learning. We also have our digital library hosted by NUS. That's where we have all our e-resources, make it available so that our local context can be accessible. And from this pandemic, it pushed our organizations and even the management to consider ICT as an important driving factor within our organization. What I meant is that we were proposing our server for Moodle to be procured 3 months before the pandemic. But once we hit with pandemic, then suddenly that comes up and say, okay, go ahead, buy your server, so that we can have a proper infrastructure to deliver our service. So that's a good thing of in this area. When pandemic comes out, I think ICT was one of their best or one of their priorities to consider. We also have a digital TV, and for your information, here in Samoa, we moved our infrastructure from analog to digital. So our digital TV was one of the medium that we used to deliver some of our notices. But in our second phase, we're going to pay-per-view approach, so that only those students will pay for such and such to access their courses on digital TV. And we also have the social media, We use the social media because most of the students and the staff are easy to use the social media to deliver rather than go on the Moodle itself. So we were using any sort of avenues that we can deliver the education here from National University of Samoa. Yes, we have challenges, and the biggest challenge we face is the connectivity and it's a major issue for all the Pacific Islands, because connectivity to some areas of the country where our students and staff, especially in the rural areas, there's a last mile of connectivity there. So it's an issue, and it's an ongoing issue. And I think that our government and the small island states are facing that kind of issue. And the other one, I think it's a common, is access to technology. Even though we provide a good bandwidth, internet, but if you don't have the technology, if you don't have a devices on your hand, then it's useless, it's pointless. So that's the other thing, because of the cost of this technology here in the small island states, it's expensive. So to wrap up with some comments here, achieving better opportunities to improve quality education, it requires affordable access to the internet. At the same time, cybersecurity is everyone's duty, because we need to have cybersecurity inject into our everyday life. And it's also important to be part of this discussion, to continue in this regional level. And as a Pacific Islander, we want more voices in such forums like this one. Recently, we had the Pacific IGF, and a lot of discussion should be aligned to the regional and global IGF. And I think I'll leave some comments to the end of our discussion, Andrew, but Rajneesh, but I'm also happy that Rajneesh here, because I met him when he came to Samoa for the Pacific Internet PACInet with Vince Cerf and other guys in ICT field. So I'm so glad that he's sharing this plenary session. Thank you again, Raj.
Fatai Sarai, and indeed, it's been a long time. I think that was in 2006. So you've taken me right back to 15 odd years ago now. But it's great to see the position you were in, Sarai, and congratulations for all that you're doing. A lot of our panelists have mentioned the digital divide and how, one thing I say very often is that, we are creating new digital divides in a lot of things we're doing. And I think you got a hint of that from what nearly just all of our speakers have said thus far. One of the biggest communities I feel that is consistently left behind is people with disabilities. And this is where I'd like to bring in Shabir to speak a little bit to that. People with disabilities, make up somewhere around 15% of the global population, but yet their needs are often overlooked in many programs and initiatives. And developed countries, developing countries, emerging countries, doesn't matter. The problems, I think, cut across all of those countries. So I really wanted to hear from Shabir as to how it has been for people with disabilities. I've seen reports and have conversations with many people on some of the challenges they face. But I think Shabir, for those who are not aware, suffers from a disability as well. So I think it's very important to hear from people who live the experience on what it is. So Shabir, I'll hand over to you, and you may need to adjust your camera a little bit up. Shabir, we just yes, that's better. Yeah.
Okay. Raj, are you able to hear and see me perfectly now?
Yes, we can hear you fine, and we see you good enough.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Raj, for your invitation and the question as well. Yes, person with disabilities are as much as the stakeholder in internet and digital inclusion as any other person could be. And if we just see the stats, you very rightly pointed out that it's a very large number. Just in Asia, I was seeing somewhere stats that persons with disabilities form about 600 or more people. So this is a population which is more than the population of many of the countries in Asia, in our region.
So if you really want a sustainable, trustable, and inclusive internet, you cannot leave these people behind. And also, if you want to take these people onto the digital inclusion vehicle that is per se, so you need to have the access and the application made accessible and inclusive for everyone. As far as your question with regards to person with disabilities during the pandemic is concerned, person with disabilities in all aspects have been, it's been felt that they are the people who have largely been left behind. And I will, in a couple of points, elaborate how so. First is the health and other concerns. People with disabilities are as much affected from the pandemic as any other person would be. But as far as the information is concerned, due to the inaccessibility of the internet or the resources or the websites where these resources were placed, they have been largely unable to access these resources. Also, due to the people distance requirements and also the travel restrictions, people with disabilities have been left when it comes to the preparation with regards to emergency situation and the provision of health facilities to the people. Because people with physical impairments and people with visual impairments largely have been, they remain unable to move. And if you put restriction with regards to physical spaces, so this makes it more difficult. As well as if you see the restriction of the face mask, so this makes people with hearing impairment unable to communicate easily with the people. So lip reading is, as we all know, is one of the skills of people with hearing impairment to communicate. Also, in our part of the world, largely the online resources which were to be used for the betterment of the humanity, for the betterment of the people, have been largely, if I not say completely, unable to provide that benefit which could have been to a person with disabilities. If I talk about the more popular resources or the online platforms that are being used in Asia Pacific in our region, for instance, the ride-hailing services, Kareem, the online shopping websites like AliExpress and Daraz, such as Food Panda. So these applications have the inaccessibilities for different people with disabilities inherent, because the developers, they were unconscious, unaware, or they deliberately left the accessibility barriers while building these applications. Lastly, I would also highlight that person with disabilities, it's not just that internet has been a total failure for people with disabilities to provide any kind of information, access, and benefit. During this pandemic, people with disabilities have been beneficiary of the technologies, but had the developers did their job rightly and the policymakers did prepared their policies rightly, these benefits could have been increased. Thank you.
Thank you, Shabir. One thing I'd just like to highlight here, I say this whenever I'm asked to speak on accessibility issues, and it's this, that a lot of people say that, providing access to people with disabilities to digital technologies is not something that I need to worry about. Actually, you do, because as each one of us ages, we will have visual impairments. We will start losing our hearing. And there will come a point in time where you will rely on some of these accessibility technologies. So it's so very important to pay attention because you will live that life one day as well. I can assure you of that. And I'm experiencing that myself. As I age, my vision's reducing. It's not the 2020 vision it used to be back in the day. And it is annoying when you can't read things on your small little mobile phone screen and so on. Okay, so I'm being reminded that we only have a few minutes left. As I mentioned earlier, we started a bit late, and of course, we have a session at the top of the hour. So unfortunately, we will not be able to go into a full Q&A session. There were a whole lot of very interesting points that we had from all of our speakers. The fact that digital transformation has had to be accelerated by a lot of countries, but at the same time, I think we still have a lot of countries who are not giving it as much priority. It's like we need to have it, but they haven't put the resources to it yet, be it financial or human capacity or otherwise. There are new digital divides which are emerging, and I think if you listen carefully to how each speaker spoke, I'm sure you picked up on that, depending on what sort of connectivity and infrastructure they have and what resources they have, that determines on what they can provide back to their community or elsewhere. We heard about the logistical challenges that network operators have had to deal with and continue to deal with. And of course, all other sectors are also dealing with the same problem. So it's like a perfect storm, right? Everything's all happening at once and nothing's working in some ways. One other very important thing that I think that came through for me was that, we really need to leverage, I know we've all faced lots of challenges with the pandemic in many different ways. Some of us may have lost loved ones and so on, but there's still a silver lining there. There are some opportunities we can take away that we can leverage from the challenges that have been thrown at us. There's one thing I just wanted to come back to Enrique on in just a few minutes we've got left. And that was, you mentioned about information overload, Enrique, and that I think has been seen in many countries around the world. And also the fact that how do we differentiate what is right, what is wrong, what is accurate, what is not. And there's just the sheer amount of information that is being shared, right? And add to that the dimension of the current pandemic, where there are all sorts of stories floating around on what horse medicine one can take to fix the virus and all sorts of other silly things. There's the other one that says if you get vaccinated, you'll turn into a 5G phone, really stupid things like that. But aside from all that, how do you think we are dealing with this information overload? Is there something, that the Philippines has done in how you approach this?
Thank you, Raj. Information overload is a two-edged sword. While it can provide as much as information to those who need them, it can also provide confusion, especially for fake news, infodemics that actually hamper our COVID-19 response. That's why it's very important that the private sector will be united with the public sector so that we can get ahead of this information overload, and more importantly, with fake news. In the Philippines, Raj, I'm proud to say that because of this pandemic, never before have we seen so much cooperation and collaboration with the private sector. And in fact, we have evolved ourselves into a special watch group so that we can monitor fake news, correct them as immediately as we can. And the youth are providing us the impetus to make sure that we provide them with the timely, relevant, accurate information that can guide them in very good behavior so that the COVID-19 response is something that is not fragmented, but something that is shared by everyone. This is difficult, Raj. It's not going to happen soon, but we are confident that with the private sector and with the processes that we have introduced through policies, webinars, we can provide the information that's only needed and that which will help us get the benefits for our interventions in the COVID-19 response. Thank you, Raj.
Thank you, Enrique. And I think what that highlights for me is that, there is that need for solid collaboration among stakeholder groups and indeed among sectors to make it all make sense. So again, I'm being reminded that I need to close this session. So I apologize to my speakers that we won't be able to do another round of conversations. I do hope that, and in fact, everyone I think made some great interventions. And what I do hope it does, in the absence of getting into a Q&A right now, that it lays the stage for what's going to come later in the week. A lot of these sessions that we have will actually talk to some of these things that have been raised by our very kind speakers here today. And I'm hoping, this has been some food for thought for our participants and our session organizers and moderators on how they can perhaps inject some of these things that our speakers have talked about today into their discussions. And indeed, I'm also looking forward to some of these being captured in the synthesis document for APrIGF. So, everything our speakers have said today, I'm hoping that will be covered and that, we can hopefully action some of those. Again, I'm being told to shut up now, so I really need to bring the session to an end. Again, my apologies to my speakers that we couldn't have a bit of a to and fro discussion on this, but I'm hoping that perhaps we could reconvene another day and continue this conversation. And of course, we have the rest of the week and the sessions that we have. So thanks very much, everyone. Thank you so very much to all my speakers.
Thank you, Raj. Thank you, Raj. Thank you so much.
And please stay connected, and we look forward to hopefully seeing you all in person in the very near future. And until then, look forward to seeing you online. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Secretary.